Welcome to Bitcoin Fixes This, where we explore the impact that Bitcoin will have in all aspects of society. In this episode, I answered listener questions. There were a bunch of topics I talked about, including Taproot, China, and El Salvador. It's not a very long episode, but hopefully gives you an idea of what's coming next. Okay, this is another episode where I am going to answer some listener questions. I have a bunch of them from Twitter, but I am recording this on Clubhouse, so I will be taking some questions from the audience here as well. I know a lot of people are still kind of recovering from Miami, so hopefully, they're fully recovered and can do, what they need to do. All right, so here are some questions from Twitter that I'm going to answer. Let's see. There's an interesting article from Breaking Christian News about how China is weaponizing Bitcoin against a US dollar. I actually thought the article was more or less accurate. China is pushing for Bitcoin a little bit because it does undermine the dollar. I don't think they. It's pretty obvious to me that that they're pretty big gold bugs and can't see Bitcoin for what it is, and that prevents them from seeing the good on Bitcoin instead of just the bad, which for them is like, yeah, the dollar's awful, and I think even they recognize that, and China sort of like taking down the dollar isn't a bad thing. All right. CJ Wilson asks, will we see the Switzerland of Latin America motto at some point from these nations adopting Bitcoin? I certainly hope so. In the sense that you can, because it's legal tender there, you don't have to pay capital gains taxes and so on. That's pretty huge. You'll continue to get better purchasing power because it's slightly deflationary over time, and there's of course the supply shock event every 4 years and so on. So in the sense that like Switzerland, at least back in the 80s, was known for its like numbered bank accounts where you could keep a bunch of money without anyone knowing about it, and that would be great. And Bitcoin already kind of gives you that. But the fact that you don't get capital gains taxed on your Bitcoin will hopefully kind of give it that same reputation. How will we bring more DeFi to Bitcoin in a way that's consistent with Bitcoin's scalability goals? I mean, well, you don't need all these scammy tokens. Every DeFi project seems to have one in order to attract more people. So. If you don't have, scammy tokens, then I think it's pretty legit. The thing is, it's not nearly as popular without some token because people like speculating on tokens, and it helps out the people that are building it because they can essentially print their own money. There's already stuff like Atomic Finance, who are doing Bitcoin-backed loans, or Bitcoin options and things like that. So it's entirely possible. But the thing you have to realize is that if you don't have a token and all these marketing dollars behind it, you're not going to have nearly the same amount of popularity. How would Taproot affect Bitcoin and Lightning? Also for general use, like in El Salvador. Well, Lightning already works, and that's because SegWit takes away transaction malleability. What Taproot does is it adds Schnorr signatures, which means that you can have channel openings that aren't obviously channel openings. With pay-to-witness script hash, it's very clear that what you're doing is opening a channel because it's a 2 of 2. With Schnorr, it gives you a little more privacy. People don't know necessarily that it's a channel open, and that's a very good thing. Because if a miner can't tell that it's a Lightning close or something like that, then they can't necessarily like discriminate against it and so on. Which no doubt could happen in some capacity. Uh, let's see. What would be a simple example or examples of things that we might want programmed onto Bitcoin? And are there more complex things that you need a team of or volunteers to start working on for the betterment of the code or the community? I think we've got a lot of the features. Taproot obviously is a pretty nice upgrade. Something like cross input signature aggregation is also a nice upgrade. Let's see. Yeah, there's probably some more complex things that are coming down the pike, but it isn't for the lack of ideas that Bitcoin doesn't add certain features. It's more because we prioritize security. You can add all kinds of features, but if it doesn't get used, then it was kind of a waste of time, right? And if it's not used in the way that you think, then you might end up creating all sorts of bad incentives and so on. All right, let's see. I heard on Peter McCormick's show that Shinobi said the another update had to be done to Bitcoin after Taproot to allow Lightning to fill the hopes we have for it. Assuming it's true, can you explain that update would be and how likely you see that to getting implemented eventually? I think he's talking about SigHash any prev out. Essentially, it allows you to sign for something with a different previous output that is a different input and so on. I think that means that you can switch out the UTXO you're using and essentially like upgrade the channel when like as needed, something like that. It's probably one of the 3 or 4 different soft forks that are on dock for the next soft fork after Taproot. The others would be cross input signature aggregation, opctv, and I can't remember the last one, but there's a bunch of them that are possible as sort of like the next thing. Let's see. Well, greater awareness of the Wyckoff method. I don't know what that is. More on Taproot, please. Well, I mean, if you don't understand Taproot, it's a bunch of different things that are coming in at the same time. So you have you have this Taproot tree, which is essentially 32 bytes that are encoded in a BC1Q address. And it essentially makes it like impossible to tell whether it's a single SIG key or a multi-sig key or something more complicated. And that's a very good thing. And you can have essentially backups of your of the amount that you have. Like basically if you have a wallet, you can back it up with like three of your friends, helping you out, something like that. And that's a very good thing. The ability to, back something up is kind of what you want. Do you think speedy trial will be the standard process for UASF in the future? Is there any drawback on this process? Also, any downside or trade-off on Taproot? I mean, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. So no real downside there because if there was a downside, you just use the older, SegWit or something else. This wasn't a user activated soft fork. It was the miners actually decided to signal for it, so we're above 90% at this point, and it will probably lock in sometime on Friday, and that's a good thing. The current process I don't think will necessarily be the standard going forward, and that's okay. I mean, I think every soft fork needs its own sort of process because things change. All right, hi Jimmy. Cross input signature aggregation. All right, so maybe I should explain what that is because this is one of the really nice things about Schnorr signatures that we're eventually going to get, hopefully. So what is it? Cross input signature aggregation is the ability to aggregate signatures. Now, what does that mean? Right now, when you do a multi-sig and you have like 2 of 3 or something like that, you have to have 2 separate signatures, each one being like 70 bytes or something like that. With Schnorr, what you can do is you can have a taproot tree of each of 2 of 2 of those keys. And what you do is whichever path you end up taking, that's the one that you use, and you only see one signature because the signatures can be aggregated and the pub keys can be aggregated. So you see one pub key and one signature. Now, what does cross input mean? So say you're spending from 5 inputs. Even with Schnorr, what you end up doing is you have to have at least one signature and one pub key per input. And that kind of sucks because you can also aggregate those. And that's, I think, where we're headed. And among other things, that means that if you have like 20 inputs, you only still need one signature. So you can amortize the cost of various of that block space over lots and lots of inputs, which means that there's now an incentive to coin join. You can have lots of people get into this coin join, and when you do, you essentially make it so that every single person gets to be a part of a large transaction. And that means you're saving some block space because you only have one signature for this one giant transaction. And you have the ability to coin join like sort of naturally. Every exchange is going to want to do this because it would be in the best interest of their customers to pay less fees and so on. And I imagine they'll be the ones running these giant coin joins to make that happen. So that's probably coming up in the next soft fork. But that's something to think about. How the UX of wallet and exchanges can help new users. Well, I mean, user experience is always kind of a tricky thing. You know it when you see something good, but it's hard to know what will be good beforehand. And some exchanges have better UXs than others. Obviously, they do a lot of like usability testing and A/B testing to make that work. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that new users necessarily like are easy to write software for. Is Lightning ready? Yeah. So Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador is using it. I think a lot of people are missing the fact that El Salvador already had a big Bitcoin community, and really this action by the president is securing what's already there so that it's easier for their people. And really, this is what a good government should do: is to secure things that people have already built and not take them away. I'd love for you to talk about the problems of Bitcoin and ways of fixing them in the future. I mean, the only thing is really kind of privacy, and I think you get that with cross-input signature aggregation. So that's about it. I think the rest of it works just fine. I know altcoiners like to say that their coin fixes something, but really it's an excuse to print money. What role does Taproot play in furthering Bitcoin adoption, beginner level? I'm not sure if it necessarily, well, actually, no, I take that back. So Taproot does allow you to essentially have a backup of every UTXO. So you can have something like three of your friends that can help you recover your coin if you lose everything, right? Like your backup seed and your phone wallet that used it or something like that. So yeah, I think it would help because you can have some sort of natural backup. So you can have custody, but also make it so that you have some way of getting it back should you lose everything. So some sort of like something like a safety net, but not as centralized as like government safety nets are. Confidential transaction status timeline. I don't know if that's something that we're really gonna get in Bitcoin. Is Lightning ready for El Salvador? Yes, as I said, it's already being used at Bitcoin Beach. Can the U.S. still tax Bitcoin as a property now that it's a currency for another country? So this is an interesting question. Some people are saying that because it's recognized legal tender in another country, that that it has to be treated as a foreign currency, in which case it would have sort of like the same rules as a currency, and maybe we don't get taxed on it quite like the capital gains taxes that we have, but it's hard to tell. Uh, what are the tax implications of all of us now that the U.S. is forced to treat Bitcoin as a foreign currency? See, I'm not sure if the U.S. will, but I mean, like legally, they probably have to, but they'll find a way around it to deny it to us if they want to. A more technical discussion of proof of work versus proof of stake. There's not really much more of a technical discussion than okay. Proof of work is finding a hash that's below a certain number. Proof of stake is a bunch of signatures from some select group of people. That's it. That's the difference. One is a bunch of signatures. One is actual computation used to find something that is sufficiently small. Proof of work it requires a lot more energy, so it's a lot more secure. Proof of stake is lots of signatures, which isn't secure at all because you can generate signatures anytime you want, that as long as the participants are willing. And generally, I mean, proof of stake is not that different than the US dollar. I mean, you go look at the dollar and there's a couple of signatures on there, usually like Secretary of the Treasury or something like that, and somebody else. It's kind of ridiculous that people make that as if it's like a deep philosophical discussion and not something technical. It's the technical aspect of it is that one requires lots of electricity, the other just requires signatures. Signatures are super easy, and they don't provide any security whatsoever. BIP 118, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. What really happened to this FBI thing? Can Bitcoin be hacked? I think the FBI. All right, so you have to understand, like government organizations, they generally want to look good. That's why they put out press releases. Period. Right? Like it's some guy's ego trip. Right? Whenever you see a press release, they thank like 40 different people, and it's because everybody wants the credit because their government jobs don't like provide much fulfillment. This is one of the few times that you can actually go do something. So they put out claims that obviously weren't true. You can't quote unquote hack Bitcoin or just go grab private keys. If they kept it on a cloud server, then these people really didn't know what they were doing. But they make outlandish claims, and you should really look at any government press release with the same skeptical eye that you are with this one, regarding Bitcoin, because they don't really tell the truth. They just want to look good, and whatever makes them look good, they're gonna say. I just want to know what brand name, the brand name of your hat. It's Stetson, although I do have one from Texas Hatters down in Lockhart. Absolutely the most gorgeous hats. It has the one that I paid a lot of money for when Bitcoin hit 10,000. It has a beaver pelt brim and a straw top. It's called a half breed, and the idea is that it keeps you cool during the summer because of the straw on top, and the beaver pelt keeps the rain away. Yeah, so pretty awesome hat, even if I paid a lot of money for it. All right. What do you expect the first practical improvements for the regular user of Bitcoin will be after Taproot activates? I've answered this question a few times, but basically, you're going to have the ability to back it up in some way with maybe friends that know what they're doing a little better. So you can do three of your friends that will help you recover your coins should you lose everything. Update your hardware wallet regularly to access your coins, or toss the old and buy a new wallet to access your coins in the future. Um, I mean, I generally recommend some sort of multi-sig setup, so that's what I do. And you can swap them out on, as the hardware wallets improve. Can you explain how game theory is used to keep the network secure? I mean, game theory is just sort of like a fancy way of saying like some form of incentives. The incentives on the Bitcoin network are pretty darn good in the sense that if you want to attack the Bitcoin network, you're going to it's going to cost you a lot of money. And especially versus just mining honestly, in which case you're going to make a lot of money, and that's a good thing. So I would say that at a high level, that's an essential answer. Applications of DeFi, is it really needed? I really don't think so. People are like, hey, but you can do loans or whatever. Yeah, you don't need a scammy token though. You can do loans. I don't know how useful that is. I mean, you're going. Most people get loans on their Bitcoin so they can buy more Bitcoin or something like that. In which case, you're just leveraging, and you can go do that at BitMEX or whatever. I don't recommend it because generally people that get a lot of, get some of these, leverage things kind of get wrecked whenever there's a big price move. All right, when Moon? I think maybe later this year. All right, can we have a permissionless financial system on Bitcoin without KYC? How would that look like? We already kind of do. You can go buy Bitcoin using like HODL HODL or local Bitcoins, and not have it recorded anywhere. And that's a good thing. So you might have to pay a little bit of a premium, but no KYC checks required. What is proof of transfer or proof of X? I don't know what that is. Do you expect a hostile reaction by stakeholders in the legacy financial system against the move of President Bukele? I don't think so because a lot of these current stakeholders have to deal with a lot of weird incentives kind of coming into their part of the world right now. If you think about it, banks are not really making money off of savings, right? Like they're paying you 0.05% on your money because they're getting maybe 0.1%. They're like not making any money at all off of your savings. They're also not making money off of loans because it's like 2 or 3%. In Europe, it's like negative. If it's negative, you're definitely not making money. It's like if it's like 2 or 3%, it's a very tiny amount. At least relative to what it used to be. So they have their own problems to deal with, and I don't think they'll be paying attention too much to what's going on with El Salvador. All right. Power assumption from Bitcoin is getting more attention after Tesla bought Bitcoin in a bad way. After all 21 million mined, will the power usage be stopped or decreased? Hard to say. It depends on the fees that people are willing to pay. And if it's significant, then I imagine people will be, all of these miners will make a relatively decent amount of money. Where can one get a job if she knows the Bitcoin core code really well? Certainly a lot of Bitcoin companies like, River and Swan and Cash App, probably a lot of exchanges, a lot of custodial services, Unchained Capital, yeah, lot of different places. All right, let's see. How do you anticipate the IMF to respond, react to what happened in El Salvador? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know. I haven't studied the IMF's sort of like demands too much. I do know that they wanted to have sort of like a neutral global currency and the special drawing rights, which really doesn't mean anything. But yeah, I don't know. They might be hostile. It's hard to say. Soft or hard tacos? I don't eat tacos. Sorry. All right. Let's see. Okay. How come the charts are not up? While Elon just tweeted something from the tweet, the market's changed. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a mini slump, and it doesn't matter what news comes. Momentum is kind of powerful. It might be on its way back up again. Before it was, even bad news caused Bitcoin to go up. So hard to say. How does Taproot help me? I answered this already. For Coinbase users who want to use Lightning Network, how would you suggest they convert BTC to BTCLN to start using it? You don't. I think you're kind of not understanding Lightning. You can open a Lightning wallet and fund it directly from Coinbase. So you can send your Bitcoins from Coinbase to your Lightning wallet, and it'll open one or more channels using the money that's in your Lightning wallet, and then you can essentially use the Lightning network right away. What is your opinion on drive chains? I think it's an interesting idea. The things in Bitcoin just take a really long time. I know Paul Stork has been, you know, working on this for a very long time. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't studied it too closely. All right. All right. SegWit was the last block size upgrade in 2017. Is it time to create a speedy trial for 2x blocks? No, no. I don't think you understand that Lightning is the scaling layer, and that's what people are using already, and especially in El Salvador. When Taproot, so that'll be around mid-November is when we're expecting it. Hi, Jimmy, big fan here. I was wondering what is the safest way to save BTC? Really don't feel the Nano Ledger. Yeah, I don't think you should use the Nano Ledger either. I would say the Spectre do-it-yourself wallet, Kobo Vault, the Bitcoin-only firmware, and Cold Card. If you're technically savvy enough, use that with the Spectre wallet, and that will pretty much give you everything you need. Do you coin join, and if so, which method do you use? I don't use coin join, mostly because it's very, very annoying to use. When with El Salvadorians starting to use Bitcoin as a unit of account, how do you see them pricing their goods and services? I imagine their prices will continually fluctuate in a pre-hyper Bitcoinized world. I think, I don't think they're going to use it as a unit of account. I think they'll probably use dollars, and what they'll do is just pay the dollar amount in Lightning. So one of the guy that gave this presentation was Jack Mallers, and he's, of course, from Strike. And it makes it very easy to, send dollars via Lightning to another wallet. So I think that's probably the direction that they're going to go, and not necessarily use Bitcoin as the unit of account, at least not yet. What happens to the Bitcoin the US government keeps confiscating? The Bitcoin from Silk Road. Yeah, I mean, they usually get auctioned off by the US Marshals. So Tim Draper famously bought most of them from the Silk Road. There's other people that buy it for other reasons. Have we bought them? I don't know. That's a very good question. Delta between Liquid and Lightning. I think Lightning is a little faster. Liquid has confidential transactions, so those are the main differences, I would say. Is Monero safer for illegal activities? I don't know. What do you think of the stacks? No, I'm not going to answer a shitcoin question. What's the next step after Taproot? Probably, I mean, I gave the answers earlier, but probably cross input signature aggregation, any prev out, or OpsCTV. If you can only open one Lightning channel, who would you connect to and why? I would probably connect to more than one, but probably some well-connected node. Maybe Bitfinex or something like that. What could have the what could have the FBI done technically to get Bitcoin from hackers? Yeah, I think their story's BS. Uh, did Salvador give a legal definition of the word? Yeah, I don't. You're not really making sense with that question. Tell us about your interactions with Vitalik Buterin and how lame he was. Yeah, I mean, he's just not a very good coder, and people, act like he's some brilliant wonderkind. He's not. He's like any other college graduate, has like lots of ideas on how to make things awesome, and then they try coding it and they fall on their face. Except with Vitalik, he doesn't fall on his face because he's printing his own money to cover whatever mistakes he's made. So, I feel kind of bad for him because I think he could have been a decent software engineer had he gone down that path. Instead, he's, non-technical people seem to like worship him as a deity, because they're not technical enough to know that what he says is mostly kind of stupid. But yeah, I mean, he's not a very he's not a very good software engineer, and you can tell by the way Ethereum's designed. Can you explain Taproot in a dumbed down way and what's next? Oh, yeah, I already answered that. Why aren't stablecoins issued on or on top of the Bitcoin network yet? I mean, it kind of was. Tether was for a long time on the Omni protocol, which was on top of Bitcoin. Then they moved to Ethereum. Now they're on Tron, and I think on Liquid as well. So, I mean, you can do it, but generally Bitcoiners aren't going to be courting you to put your stuff on their network, because they're using it for Bitcoin. What's the difference between engineers like Satoshi, Jack Mallers, and you, and between thinkers like Vitalik Buterin? Um, well, I would say that there's probably more respect for stuff that, like stuff that's been hardened, at least for Satoshi. That this is clear when you look at the protocol. It's, Satoshi used some part, like dir signatures, for example, distinguished encoding rules or something like that. He used something that was kind of heavy handed and had like 7 extra bytes, but he did it because it was hardened. A lot of people knew it, and there were already libraries to check it and so on, and that's what he used. Whereas Vitalik thinks that if it wasn't invented here, then it's no good, and he needs to make his own. And of course, he makes insane, stupid mistakes like having no checksum in addresses. Another BTC mining ban in China right now. I mean, that's kind of already happened, and a lot of that hashing power is moving out of China as we speak. Probably a lot of it is coming to North America. Yeah, we'll be seeing what's going to happen with that. All right. So those were the questions on Twitter. Let's see if I had any on what's wrong with vegetables. That's funny. Well, the thing that's wrong with vegetables is that they really don't provide that much nutrition. Most of it is fiber, and our bodies don't know how to process fiber. If your body wants to process fiber, then you're going to have you're going to essentially be like a cow, which has 4 stomachs and chews 18 hours a day. We're not cows, and we don't have 4 stomachs, and we don't chew 18 hours a day. So, most of that just goes right through us. So it doesn't have that much nutrition, period. All right, let's see if there's any on LinkedIn. Yeah, nothing on LinkedIn. No, nothing on YouTube. All right, so there we go. All right, so let's pull up some people. All right, yeah, please raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and I will bring you up, and you can ask a question. Except Oflo, there you go. Yeah. What's up, Oflo? Oh, well, the way these things work is that you need enough senators and congressmen to sort of push for it, possibly a president. And honestly, this administration is probably not really that into Bitcoin, and I don't see them expending their political capital to do that. So you have to kind of make it worth their while, and this is sort of like the dirtiness of politics: is that you get what you pay for. So in order to make it worthwhile, you have to throw some money around. You have to donate to a lot of campaigns and say, hey, you know what, like this is my one issue. You get this done, and I'll keep the money flowing. At some point, we might want to do that, but I don't know. Like many of us in this community, being libertarian, I don't think that like way is necessarily something we see as that honorable. I think eventually, we get that anyway. But yeah, it requires a lot of money being thrown around, a lot of like lobbying and so on. Awesome. All right. Anyone else with a question? Yeah, if we don't have any more questions, then I think we are done with this episode. So yeah, thanks for listening, and hopefully you got something out of all the questions that I answered. Anyway, Fiat Delenda S, this song is done. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Bitcoin Fixes This. Of course, I can be found on Twitter at Jimmy Song and on Clubhouse and other places. Until next time, Fiat Delenda S.